today is all about coaching because the Dolphins 1-5 have to play the Browns 1-5. Could this be the weekend? Could this finally be the weekend if the Dolphins lose? Or are we going to have to do this every single weekend with this team because Stephen Ross is 85 years old and he just doesn't really care as much as people want him to care?
He cares. He cares.
Sure, but maybe he cares more about F1 right now and what F1 looks like in Miami, and he's more concerned with that. He doesn't want to start over again. But it's just we're going to continue on with this coaching theme. So we have Mike McDaniel and what could happen if they lose. Then we have what's happening with the Jets and Aaron Glenn, where the team is just they're 0-6. They just look like a terribly coached football team. They're just bad across the board. They're playing the Carolina Panthers, who are 3-3. Where last season Dave Gonzalez was the guy who everybody wanted to fire because the Panthers just couldn't play great football. This year they're 3-3. It looks like they're
Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I wouldn't call him Coach of the Year, but it looks like Bryce Young is playing the best football of his career, and everybody had wrote him off as being like this guy is going to be a bust. So where do you stand?
Right.
Where do you stand on is it too early to move on for a guy? When can front offices see that things are clearly not working out and you have to just cut bait? Or when do you just wait too long? Because it looks like the Mike McDaniel situation, the Dolphins are just waiting too long for the inevitable to happen. Whereas the Aaron Glenn situation, him being a first-time head coach, him being one of the hottest names on the coaching market, last year to bring in, where he was the defensive coordinator for the Lions. Yeah, he was. It was.
I don't remember that.
Him and Ben Johnson were 1A and 1B for who should be, the top head coach. But you're 0-6. You're playing terrible football. Things just don't look promising right now. You told Aaron Rodgers to kick rocks, and now Aaron Rodgers is on the Steelers, and they're in first place in the AFC North.
Coca, stop. You think Aaron Glenn made the decision to not have Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback?
Listen, I think that was part of the conversation with a first year GM in there too, where they sat down and said, hey, what is our football team going to look like? Do we think that we can win football games? And I think if Aaron Glenn comes out and he says, hey, I want Rodgers here because I believe that we can win football games with Aaron Rodgers. I think I can handle whatever media headache is going to be there. I think that the team would have been like, okay, we'll keep Aaron Rodgers around, because he's only going to be around for a year or two. And they went out and they got Justin Fields, and it hasn't worked out.
And I'm telling you that during the interview process, it was made very clear to Aaron Glenn that Aaron Rodgers would not be his quarterback. But let's go back to Stephen Ross quickly. Mm-hmm. He would give up F1 tennis. He would give up real estate, Hudson Yards. He'd give it all up for a Super Bowl trophy. All of it. So Stephen Ross wants to win a Super Bowl. So just know that. Stephen Ross does not like firing coaches during a season. And Mike McDaniel, it is true, it feels like we're week to week with him. So my question for you is this. Don't you think as a fan, you would like your owner to come out and say, except no one would believe him because it's like the dreaded vote of confidence. But wouldn't you like your owner to come out and say before the Browns game, hey, win or lose this weekend, Mike McDaniels is our coach. Mike McDaniel, there's no S, I think. Let's do that again, Coca, 4869. Win or lose, Mike McDaniel is our coach, and we are improving. We are attempting to have a system in place that will lead us to a Super Bowl. My name is Stephen Ross, and I believe in this message. I endorse the message of keeping Mike McDaniel. Why not come out and say that? Because when you don't, you're going week to week. And when you go week to week, it's like going game to game with a baseball manager. It doesn't really work well. Or game to game, it doesn't work with anybody. You can't have that sort of pressure. The players feel it. The coaches feel it. The head coach feels it. My view is if you're going to fire McDaniel, do it now. Have the interim come in before the Browns game, because then you can win the Browns game and all of a sudden you can say, hey, look, things are different. We're off to the races, as Steve Ballmer likes to say. Now, if they beat the Browns, it's not like, hey, everything's fixed, because the message is, yeah, beat someone good. So it doesn't help. If they don't beat the Browns, then they fire him. Then the interim has to come in and face they play the week after that. I want to say the Falcons, maybe the week after the Browns. Can you look at week 8?
Yeah, they're at Falcons, then Ravens, and then they're bye.
Right. So listen, it's not the fact the Ravens or Lamar could be back by then, but a hamstring, I doubt he will. The Falcons, you think that they're not doing well, and then all of a sudden,
there is no bye. There is no. They don't have a bye until between November 16th and November 30th. So they're playing 1, 2, 3, 4 games, and then they have a bye.
So the Dolphins have Atlanta, then they have Cleveland, then Atlanta, then Baltimore, then another team.
Buffalo.
So listen, you certainly aren't going to make the coaching change. If he loses the next 3 games, you're not bringing in your interim guy to face Buffalo. You just wouldn't do it. That would be the absolute most ridiculous thing of all time. If you lose to the Browns, you bring the interim guy in to play Atlanta, Baltimore, and then have Buffalo as game 3, maybe reasonable. But Stephen Ross just doesn't like doing that. You certainly, if you lose to Cleveland and then you lose to Atlanta and you've got Baltimore coming without Lamar Jackson, where you should win that game, then you've got Buffalo the week after.
Lamar's back. Lamar's going to be back after this bye. So the Ravens are on a bye this week, and
He's going to play for sure?
Yeah, he's going to.
I thought he had a hamstring strain.
Yeah, but it's about to be 4 weeks.
He's been out for 4 weeks.
Well, it's
already?
going to be 2 weeks. You're going to have the injury, then you have 2 weeks, and then you have a bye week, and then you're back. So it's like he should be back this upcoming weekend. But that Ravens game against the Dolphins isn't for another 2 weeks after that.
That's crazy to me.
He should.
First of all, I didn't realize he'd been 4 weeks already.
He should be back. But speaking about owners who come out and publicly defend their coaches, one of them is Jerry Jones, who Jerry Jones just said there's no other coach I'd rather be in the foxhole with than Matt Eberflus, who's the first year defensive coordinator for the Cowboys this year. And the Cowboys have the worst defense in football. So when it comes to yards allowed, they're the second worst in points allowed. So that is an owner who's coming out and saying like, hey, this is my guy. I'm backing my guy to be the defensive coordinator here.
I hadn't focused on that. Is that the former head coach of the Bears?
Yeah.
And aren't the Cowboys the team that traded Micah Parsons and got a guy who's really good at stopping the run? Have they been a really good run defense?
I believe that they are one of the worst run defenses in football right now.
Did I get that wrong?
They are the fourth worst. They are the 4th worst run defense in football.
Isn't the guy they got from the Packers, whose name escapes me? I want to say Kenny Clark.
Yeah.
I thought that when that press conference that Jerry Jones had, didn't he specifically say that we've got to shore up our run defense and we are bringing in one of the best run defenders in all of football?
Yeah, and they've just been really, really bad defensively.
That
but not that Micah Parsons was going to make the biggest difference when it comes to that, but it's still, they're not getting to the quarterback. They're not stopping people. Rico Dowdle, who was a former Cowboy, just came in, last weekend and had over 200 scrimmage yards against them. So they've just been bad. But now getting back to the Jets. When you look at the Jets with Aaron Glenn and being 0-6, if you're Woody Johnson and it's just been a nightmare for them too. How are you sitting there convincing someone like Woody Johnson to be like, hey, listen, there is a plan here. We just need to just be calm right now, and not make any sort of, rash moves, after year one or in year one.
I think that's what you do. You cannot keep resetting, and I've done that. I mean, we fired so many managers, that, Coca, but you're 6 games into if you believed Aaron Glenn was the number 1 prospect, how quickly did a team believe, let's go look at a comp? And the name that's coming to my head is Matt Patricia. Do you remember that name?
Mm-hmm.
He was very sought after as a coordinator, I believe under Belichick when New England was winning every year. He became a head coach, and I want to say it was the Lions.
Correct.
How long did he last as head coach?
They gave him 2.5 seasons.
So I think that Aaron Glenn would likely be in the same scenario. Although, look what happened to Brian Callahan.
Correct.
He lasted 1.5 seasons, 19 games, going 4-15. So people are getting less patient. And if you're the Jets, I assume Woody Johnson, if you had to measure patience, I assume Woody Johnson would be at one end of the spectrum because he's never won anything. But why wouldn't Stephen Ross be there as well? Because he's never won anything and he's been around forever and hasn't won a thing. Why would Artie Moreno have any patience with anybody since he hasn't won anything in so long? So it really does depend. I'm going to say Aaron Glenn is not in danger of being fired during this season. It would just be too embarrassing to Woody Johnson. But I would say that Mike McDaniel is, and that Stephen Ross will at some point realize that he needs to start over now. So that would be my prediction. Mike McDaniel out, Aaron Glenn gets to keep his job.